What's up? It's Yoni again with the True Sports PT podcast. I wanted to give you an intro to my conversation with Nick Moore. This is the second conversation that we recorded. We're really going to dig into what he does for a living as a current long snapper for the Baltimore Ravens. What I want you to think about while you're listening to this conversation is the way that I'm able to get to the bottom of exactly what he does for a living. It's so unique, the demands and the needs physically for him to achieve his goals of delivering the perfect snap. And that's what I went through when I first met him. And that's what I do when I first meet athletes of really any level. I want to understand what it is that they need to accomplish, what they've tried thus far to get them to accomplish that goal, and what they think that I can provide before I just launch into my interventions. And you'll pick up on some of that during this conversation. We talk very specifically about how he delivers the perfect snap, and then we talk about some of the ways in which our efforts at True Sports help him to do as such. So without further ado, would love for you to enjoy this conversation. Again, we're always open to your feedback. Please reach out. Please share the podcast. You can reach us on pod@truesportspt.com with an email. Follow us on all of our social outlets at True Sports PT. We're pretty easy to find that way. And just share and give us a review. True Sports Physical Therapy Podcast. Thrilled to have Nick Moore join us. Nick Moore is the long snapper for the Baltimore Ravens. Longtime friend, for sure.
Yes.
Of the practice.
Yes.
And super excited to hear the Nick Moore origin story. Tell us all about you. Introduce yourself to sports physical therapists across the world.
So my name is Nick Moore, as Yoni said. I'm going into my third year with the Baltimore Ravens. I am at 29, about to be 30, so getting up there in age. Graduated high school back in 2011. Got drafted to the Boston Red Sox in the 30th round in 2011. Spent about 4.5 years or so with them, and got cut in my fourth spring training right at the end. And by that time, I was pretty much done with baseball. I was kind of burnt out, so I went a different route, went back to college, walked on at the University of Georgia, walked on to football as a linebacker, and did that for about 2 weeks and moved to fullback and played fullback for about 2.5 years. And then 2017, I moved to basically part-time fullback, part-time long snapper. Played a couple games at long snapper in 2017, and then 2018, my senior year, I moved to full-time long snapper and played out the whole year. My senior year, played all 14 games. Did the Reese's Senior Bowl in January of 2019, and then entered the draft in 2019 and eventually went on as undrafted free agent to the New Orleans Saints. Got cut in after the second preseason game in 2019, back when we had 4 games. So played 2 games there, got cut, dabbled around, did some workouts and stuff like that after I got cut. And then 3 or 4 weeks into the regular season 2019, I was kind of like, there's no way I'm going to get picked up at this point. Haven't played yet, so got a desk job. I worked as a financial accountant for this company outside of Atlanta. And then signed to the XFL in December of 2019. Played that all the way through until COVID happened in March of 2020 when everything kind of shut down. So the XFL kind of suspended its season. And then 2 weeks after that, I signed to the Baltimore Ravens, March of 2020. And I've been here ever since.
I guess let me just get a little bit more specific with what you do for a living with snapping.
Okay.
How many revolutions does the ball take?
3 on field goal.
On field goal.
Punt, I don't keep track. I would say closer to 8 or 9.
Okay, and the when that ball hits the holder's hands.
Yeah. The idea is the laces are facing the uprights, straight towards wherever the middle of the or essentially straight forward. We would call that 12 o'clock. 12. And the idea is for me to throw it and me to see the laces when he catches it.
How do you control how many rotations it takes, or for that timing to be synced up?
That comes in with replication of just doing my form, kind of my snap form, but finding the right distance. I need to be away from the holder's hands, or the spot, we would call it. and how hard I need to throw it. So once I figure out, like, let's say, like the biggest thing for me when I first got here, I struggled with that my first year. And one of the things Morgan and I worked on a lot was like, all right, let's get to a point where you're snapping the same every time. It doesn't matter if you're snapping 6 o'clock every time, which is the exact opposite of what we want, straight backwards. It doesn't matter if you're doing that every time, but let's get to where we can snap 10 balls in a row and they're all in the same spot. And then once we do that, we've figured out that we've kind of, I don't want to say mastered, but we have generated a very similar form, replicated the form every single time, over and over again. So that's the hardest thing as a snapper, I think, is getting that to where you're doing the same exact movements every single time you snap the ball. And it's like anything with the human body. It's very, very hard to replicate.
And it's pitching.
It's just like pitching.
Right?
It's the exact same thing. And hitting, too. Getting that motion down precisely right every single time is very, very difficult to do. And that's where your body being sore, you tweak your back's hurting, your shoulder hurts, your neck is sore, all those stuff come into play, and it makes it even harder to replicate that ability to do that motion precisely every time. But once you get that down and you have a very, very good understanding of how your body works and what kind of snap you throw, then all you got to figure out is how far the ball needs to travel to hit that 3 rotations.
That's all?
That's it.
How do you track velocity of the ball?
Yeah, we do keep track of that, but at this stage in the game, for anybody who's at this level, velocity is kind of,
there.
you have it. You have to have it in order to be here.
Entry.
Yeah, it's like you're pitching in the big leagues. You can't come out of the bullpen if you don't throw 100. So,
yeah.
That's kind of it's just kind of a thing it's just a requirement. We don't even really talk about. We keep track of like hand speed and exit velocity for the ball, but it's not something I'm looking at like, oh man, unless it's like significantly slower. And that I will usually know that before I get the data that says, hey, you were a mile and a half slower. I'll be like, man, I felt sluggish today. Like my snap felt long.
You can feel it.
Yeah, you just kind of know. And doing something over and over and over again, you just have a really good feel for, hey, I had a good day today or I had a bad day, regardless of the result. A lot of people get result oriented, and especially in baseball, it's easy to get result oriented. And you're like, man, I'm doing good. I went 3 for 3 yesterday, when really your swing stinks, and you just got a couple good pitches, and you got lucky. Really.
And so, how would you describe yourself if you're not results oriented?
I'm focused on the process.
You're
process guy.
And
you have to be.
You have to be,
because the results will come at this stage of the game. Yeah, the results are the only thing that matter, but there's no way you're going to get the result you want every time. You run out there Sunday Night Football against the Bengals. You're down 17-16. You got 3 seconds left on the clock. Coach let the clock dwindle down 35 seconds for you guys to make a field goal to win the game because he's like, yo, we're going to make this kick. You're not making that if you're only worried about having good results. If you don't trust the process, there's no way. It's just there's too many outside factors that you can't replicate in practice. You can't replicate the fans. You can't replicate the noise in the stadium. You can't replicate 6 straight home losses. You can't replicate, Sunday Night Football in 50-degree weather with a 10-mile-an-hour crosswind. You can't replicate any of that stuff in practice. And the defense lining up across from you, and there's couple million people watching you on TV. That stuff, if you're focused on just a result, you're going to crumble in that situation. You just are. And I felt it from experience. I've done it. In New Orleans, that's kind of how I was. I did awesome in practice, and I got to the game, and I just kind of crept down my leg a little bit. And you get into these moments in football. If we learned nothing from playoffs last year, is that field goal is extremely important. 75% of the games in the NFL are coming down to a field goal. They're within a touchdown. And so, you're going to go in, especially for us. Dude, my first game-winning field goal snap was the NFL record 66-yarder in Detroit last year. I couldn't even see straight. I didn't even know what was going on.
So what'd you do?
I literally I said that we have this saying. We say babies and memories when we're going for a game winner. And that's kind of a reset for my mind. It kind of takes...
Babies and memories.
Yeah, so we do it in practice. So even in practice when we're like, all right, this is a game-winning field goal kick, and I will say it to myself. And it's the same time every time. So I break the huddle, we get lined up. I look back at Justin. He starts taking his steps over. I turn around, reach for the ball. As soon as I grab the ball, I look at the right guard, and I'm like, babies and memories. Just not even talking to him. I'm just saying it for me. And it just resets my mind. It clears every thought my mind could possibly have at that moment. It just clears it all. And the only thing I think about is just throw the ball. Like, you can't think about, where my feet need to be, what my hips need to feel like, where the ball is and all that stuff, because you do that and there's no way you're going to be successful. At least you might do it one or two times, but you're not going to consistently be successful over the long term of a career in my position. And I think I learned that in baseball. Like, I was so like, God, man, I went 1 for 4, or I go 0 for 4 with 4 Ks. It's like everything was like, because it's instant gratification in football or baseball. Sorry, you get the statistics right away. You strike out, boom. You're like, I'm 0 for 1 today, and so then you're pressing. You're like, I got to get a hit. You strike out again. You're like, I'm 0 for 2. I got to put the ball in play at this point. And so that's what I struggled with a lot in baseball, was like that mental side of the game that I think a lot of athletes, especially younger athletes, they don't deal with adversity a lot. And especially these big time athletes, football and baseball, you never struggle in high school. You never really, if you're an elite level football player, you don't struggle in college either. Unless you have an injury, you're not struggling in college. So you get to the NFL, well, everybody's the same way. The guys that played for 20 years like Tom Brady are the guys that mentally that can handle it, that they're there and they're competitors, and they're like, shoot, this guy's really, really good. I'm going to figure out a way to be really, really good too. And I think that comes with work ethic. I think
work ethic and process.
Yeah. Like, you have to trust. For me, the times I feel like I don't trust like I get the most anxious in the games is when I know I didn't prepare exactly, and man, I didn't snap enough balls this week, or man, I didn't do enough right before this game, or I didn't get my body work in this week. Those things start creeping in my mind, and it's like, if I just that's why this routine is so meticulous. It's like you do all this stuff and your brain doesn't even think. You just get to the game and you just do it. Your body just knows what to do, and you just do it. And I think comes with experience. Obviously, it's easy to be like,
but ingraining and greasing the wheels of that movement pattern
all the time, every day,
so that you could do it without thinking about it.
Yeah.
When those bright lights come on. What's up, guys? It's Yoni from True Sports Physical Therapy. We are always looking for awesome sports PTs. Our practice is super unique. We are in network with insurance, but we spend one-on-one time for 45 minutes every single session with our athletes. We are housed in state-of-the-art facilities. High ceilings, big open turf spaces, racks, barbells, weights. It is a performance facility with the world's best sports physical therapists housed within them. And we want to add to our team and grow our team of awesome sports physical therapists. We offer awesome salaries, great benefits, more importantly, the ideal setup to provide the highest levels of care to the highest levels of athletes. We have awesome continuing education benefits. We have career ladders. We designed this practice to suit both the patient and the athletic patient, as well as the sports PT. So if you're interested in joining an awesome growing company, reach out. You can send us an email at pod@truesportspt.com. You can find us on all social outlets at truesportspt. We would love to hear from you. We want to hear how we can make your career even better. Give me a couple more specifics of things that have to happen for a successful snap. We know that you got to be solid through your midsection.
Yeah.
We know that we want your shoulders, elbows to snap through.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think the biggest thing for me is keeping my hips down, especially on punt. And field goal as well, but punt more so because I have to transfer my weight to turn to block. So essentially, as soon as I snap the ball, I got about 1 millisecond to get my head, eyes, and hands up to block whomever is across from me, and usually a defensive end or defensive lineman.
So, which weighs 300 pounds. And so,
yeah.
So the reason why I just made you go through that sequence of what happens physically for you to get through a successful snap is because that's the conversation you and I had when I first met you.
Yeah.
To understand what your goals are, the movement patterns that you need, and to learn from you, because like you said, you're the expert. And that's the lesson that I want to get across to the sports PTs that are listening to this, who are going to come across that elite level athlete, is you got to talk to that athlete. There's plenty of information you can get on your own of what they should, but you're not going to know Nick Moore until you talk to Nick Moore and you listen to him. And now I can translate it into my world. I know this guy's got to get a little bit deeper in his hips. I know that means hip flexion. I know that he has to control that hip flexion. I'm going to teach him how to use his hip flexor to control it and stabilize it closer to his core so that his core can stay solid, his hips can stay locked. You can dip more into hip flexion, and now you can create that whip with your upper extremities to get 3.5 rotations?
Just 3 full solid.
Just 3 full, because otherwise solid. It would be
it's like
6.
3 and a. Okay. For me, where I hold the ball, it's like 3 1/4.
It's like 3 1/4.
No, I think that goes straight. And I think one of the best things about Mookie Betts to me, in knowing him on such a personal level, was never once did he ever think he knew the most about anything. He never thought he was the smartest guy about anything. It didn't matter baseball or not. And we knew this guy was like, what? It took us about 1 year to be like, okay, this guy is legit. This guy hit 270 our first year together. And I think the reason he hit 270 is because he probably lined out to the center fielder before, when he had WTP, warning track power. Before he had home run power, he was lining out to the center fielder all over the place. But I think the biggest, one of the best things about him is the guy is so humble, and he's so eager to learn stuff. He talks to. It doesn't matter if, like, we had Rich Gedman. He was a Red Sox Hall of Famer. His son was on our team, and Matt was he was a decent baseball player, but it wasn't anything special. But Matt was very, very smart, and he knew a lot about hitting because his dad was such a big time hitting. He was a hitting coach for us. His dad was, and so Matt, I remember Mook was hitting 150 at this time. We were both hitting 150. Difference was I was striking out every time, and he was hitting line drives. And he's you could tell he was so hard on himself all the time. And it was May of 2013, and I think I was actually hitting 155 or 160, and he was hitting 140 or 135, something like that. And I remember we're sitting in the dugout, and we're in West Virginia, in Charleston, West Virginia, and Mookie's talking hitting with Matt Gedman. And Matt's like, dude, you just keep hitting the ball. Just keep swinging it. You got to start swinging it earlier in the count. Stop getting. He was a big 2-strike hitter at the beginning. And he's like, dude, you just got to keep swinging the bat. Swing early, swing often, and get up there. Never hit a home run in his career. The very next at bat hits a home run, and I don't think he's ever had a slump since, and that was 10 years ago. But I think the way he was able to talk to every person in the organization, no matter who you were, even when he was in the big leagues, since he's been in the big leagues, when I was with him, he always wanted to learn from these other people. He'd be like, hey, Nick, you're really good at when I played first base at the end of my career, he's like, man, you're really good at picking the ball out of the dirt. Like, hey, what are some things you do or think about?
As an outfielder, he's asking you this.
Yeah, well, at that time, he was still second. He was second base a little bit. And he's like, man, what are some of the things, what are some of the pointers you have for when a ball's coming here and you're going to have to backhand it? What's your thought process on it? How do you, what are you thinking? How do you get to the ball? Where do you put your glove and stuff like that? And he was always, even for me, dude, I was a career 211 hitter. I wasn't, dude, there's no way I'd have made it to the big leagues. The whole organization could have been, not been there, and I still wouldn't have made it. So,
You always say you're the most humble guy.
Mook is the one guy that I'm like, man. He's so eager to learn. It's honestly fascinating because a guy of that talent, of that caliber player, that guy's a generational talent. He's one of the best players to ever play the game, and and I think that's part of the reason why he's so good is he always listened to everybody. Whether he believed it or not, who knows? Whether he actually put it into practice, who knows? But when you tell somebody something, you're going to pick up on a little bit. Some of that stuff you're going to take with you. So I think that's one of the reasons that he's so great is that he's able to do that, and that applies to all of us.
That applies to all of us, and that's an awesome lesson to listen, to be humble, to make it about the person in front of you, and to see how do you gain that little bit of knowledge from every single person that you interact with, whether it be pro athlete, whether it be high school athlete, whether it be anybody. Yeah. I think that's a lesson really well made. I want to thank you for your time and
Of course,
joining us
dude,
on the True Sports Pod.
I love talking, man. I got a lot to say.
Well, you're good at it. You need your own podcast. Have you thought about that?
Oh, I was talking to Morgan about that, and he shut me down. So we'll see. We'll see what
Let's see if
happens.
he'll listen to the sports.
If he
PT.
hears this one and hears how good, eloquent of a speaker I am, which I'm definitely not, but no, I've dealt with a lot, I've experienced a lot in my life, in sports. I've dealt with a lot of adversity, so it's always fun to talk about, and the hope is that somebody listens and somebody can apply it to them, and somebody it helps somebody get to, because it wasn't easy to get here. I took a very, very long road. It's still not easy. Every day is hard. So,
but you really you really mind the details, and it's awesome to see, and it's been awesome to see your success, really becoming one of, like you and Morgan Cox, the absolute best long snappers in the game. So it's just been great to see that. Thank you for your time. Along those lines, we want to get better at what we're offering on the podcast. So hit us up at pod@truesportspt.com. We want to know about future guests that you want to have on here. We want to know any questions you'll have. We have a ton of questions coming in just about how to be a better sports PT that we're going to put together an Ask Me Anything episode where I'll be just dealing with those questions. So you better be listening.
No, I'm in there. I listen all the time.
He's listening. Keep listening. Share it. Love it. Appreciate you.